Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the State Advisory Council for Gifted and Talented Education. I'm glad that all of you could be with us this morning. Looking forward to introducing our new member, Jessica Hastings. Ms. Hastings, do you want to say hello just really quickly? She may be looking for how to unmute. There should be like a little, if you mouse up to the top. Oh, you found it. Awesome.
I was having trouble with my external monitor. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. So welcome, Ms. Hastings. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick or just say a quick hello?
Sure. My name is Jessica Hastings, and my daughters are at Cassidy and Morton in Lexington.
All right. Well, welcome. So next, we will start out with our welcome from our Associate Commissioner, Ms. Greta Hilton.
Good morning. Thanks, Kathy. I'm getting a little bit of a delay on my end on the internet. I don't know what the deal is. So if I sound like I'm dragging, it probably isn't me. It's just online. But seriously, let me know if you're having trouble hearing me. I just wanted to pop in for just a moment and just say good morning and thank you for everything that you're doing. Also want to take just a quick moment and just do a shout out for our friends and neighbors in McGoffin County. Please remember to keep the district and the staff, students, community, parents, bus driver, all in your thoughts and prayers. Well wishes. I know they're dealing with a lot right now, and so I just wanted to take a moment and recognize that and let them know that we're continuing to think about them and wish the best for them. And thank you for all of you that are making this a priority to be here today. I know there's a lot going on in your lives, lots and lots and lots of outside and inside pressures that's occurring in today's world. And so I just want to say thank you for helping us meet the needs for students who are gifted and talented across the Commonwealth. So I won't take up any more time. I just wanted to say good morning and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much, Greta. I really appreciate you welcoming us this morning. So now I'm going to turn it over to Joe, who's going to review some meeting norms.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Kathy. And just want to remind members, you do need to keep your camera on. Of course, we do realize if you have bandwidth issues and network issues, it's okay to turn that camera off. But if you can and your network is okay, keep the camera on. That way we can see who's speaking and who's voting and who's here today. And just remember the features within Teams. We do have a chat feature that you can use, a raise your hand feature if you have questions and so forth. Remember to stay focused on the topic. Since this is a virtual environment, it's a little more difficult to know when to pop in and so forth. And so with this dynamic, just remember to try to stay focused and keep us on the topic. I will provide an exit slip at the end of the meeting for you to provide feedback, and that really helps Kathy and I plan and prepare for the next meeting. So we appreciate your feedback on the exit slip. And we have a Google folder, and it's just called the SACGTE Google folder. And if you need permission or access to that, you can just send me an email. Just be aware you do have to have a Gmail address to access that mailbox. And so I will add you to that. Just send me an email and we'll make sure you have access. So I think that has us ready to go today. Kathy, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for reminding us of our norms today. So next, we'll move on to the roll call of members, and Dr. Roberts will take roll call from the member list by reading each member name from the chart. And if you would, please say aye if you're here.
And just to make this a little bit easier, maybe you would unmute so that that doesn't happen before you say here. Glad to see each of you. Katie Booth. Shandidra Bradford.
Aye.
Lindsay Burton.
Here.
Kimberly Code.
Here.
Brandy Corbin. Pauline Covington.
Aye.
Byron Darnell,
Here.
Mason Dyer,
Here.
Hannah England, Kirk Haynes,
Here.
Jessica Hastings. We know you're here, Jessica, and we're glad. Philip Cash, Jean Lee,
Here.
Tiffany Marshall, Brenda Martin,
Here.
John Maxey,
Here.
Kim Nettleton.
Here.
Thanks, each of you, for being here today.
Yes, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. All right. So next on the agenda is going to be our review and approval of the September 16th meeting minutes. Those were sent to you ahead of time today. So is there any discussion or first I need to ask for a motion to accept the minutes.
I will make a motion to accept the minutes. This is John Maxey.
Thank you, Mr. Maxey.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Kim, for the second. So next, is there any discussion? If there is no discussion, then we'll move to members voting. So, Joe, do we want to go through the roll call again, or do we want to say aye or nay?
Yeah, whichever you prefer.
Dr. Roberts, I think we could go with, all in favor say aye and those opposed say nay if you are so inclined.
I think that sounds perfect. All those in favor say aye.
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 And those opposed say nay. The minutes are approved, submitted.
Right. All right. So next we're going to just take a few minutes to look at some gifted and talented data. So let me share my screen here really quickly with you. Right. Sorry about that. I thought I had that pulled up. So this is the Kentucky Department of Education's school report card, and you can find this on our homepage, or you can type in KDE school report card in any of the browsers that you choose to use. As you can see, you can explore the data statewide by clicking here, or you can type a school district in this search box here. So we're just going to look at some.
We can't see that yet.
Oh,
on the screen.
Let me try again.
Oh,
Somebody said that they could.
I'm able to see
I
it.
can see it.
I'm
Okay.
able to see that.
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. There must have been
Okay.
a delay. Thank you, Kathy.
Nope, no problem. Thank you, Joe. All right. So we're going to explore some statewide education data today. We'll look at the gifted and talented data. So I'm just going to click here. And then this will take you to the next page. So there are several school years that you can look at here at the top of the page. The most recent school year's data that you can see is the 2021-2022 data. If you click the arrow, a box will drop down and you're able to see all of this data here on the down to 2017-2018. Also, I'm going to scroll down the page, so excuse the scroll just for a second. If you go down to the bottom of the page, excuse me, I thought that's where it was, but that is not where it is. I was looking for the data that you can see earlier to that. I thought it was at the bottom of the page. But there are other data sets that you can also see if you would like. And I'll find that here in just a minute. Let's scroll down. If you scroll down, as you can see, there are many different things you can see on the dashboard. You can see an overview of students by their economically disadvantaged, demographics, gender, other faculty demographics, academic performance, and then the gifted and talented data is located underneath educational opportunity. And so that is in this middle section right here. So as you can see, there's a little pie chart here that shows us that with last school year, we had 13.7% gifted and talented students in our state. And then we can explore this data in more depth. You can either click on the words that say explore gifted student data, or you can come over to the right-hand side and click on the words or the arrow over here to see more about this data. All right, so give it a minute to load, and then you can see that the first tab gives us gifted and talented participation by grade. So what we're looking at here is all students because that's what's selected here at the top of the page. So you can see that we have 86,292 students who are identified for gifted and talented in our state. This is broken down by female, male, our different ethnicities, then also our special populations. And you just use this bar here to scroll down to see our special populations. If you just want to see it by a certain grade level, then you can click that grade level. Like if you want to see all the 4th grade students in the state, you simply click grade 4, and then that shows you that information by 4th grade. Next, you can scroll down, and there is another table. And so you can see these students by category. And so we have the 5 categories, and also some of those categories are broken into more information. For example, visual and performing arts is broken into art, dance, drama, and music. And also the specific academic aptitude category is broken into language arts, math, social studies, and science. We also have the primary talent pool information here as well. And so that is that information there. And then as I said earlier, let me just pause there for a second. Does anybody have any questions about the data that you're seeing so far, about maybe how to access it?
Kathy, I have a question. So when we're looking at these data, are we including the primary talent pool in the overall numbers? And if we are, is there any way to break that out?
Yes, Dr. Roberts, the primary talent pool data is included in this information, and we have had discussions with Office of Educational Technology about disaggregating that data.
I think it would be really important to do in order to have a picture of what gifted is 4 through 12, as opposed to about 25% of our children in the primary talent pool.
Right, right. And if you wanted to see that data, you know, and just for, like I said, the 4th grade, you could break that down. But I do hear what you're saying there. Any other questions about the data?
Okay, just to clarify, so let's go back to grade 1, if you will, where it says take here.
Mm-hmm.
So grade 1 would be the primary talent pool, correct?
Correct.
Like so Dr. Roberts, are you suggesting that we need a further breakdown or a different way to look at primary talent pool?
Actually, what I'm thinking is when you look at overall numbers and are breaking those down, I think it inflates some of our numbers when we include that primary talent pool. So when we're talking about children in Kentucky who are identified as gifted and talented, those children really aren't. They're selected for the talent pool.
Now, yes, I agree with your thinking, and yeah, if they could be taken out, that would be a better count.
Okay. So thank you for that, those thoughts, those suggestions. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, as I was saying earlier, if there are other data sets that you would like to see, or if there is information you'd like to have in a spreadsheet, you can click on data sets here at the bottom of the screen, and then just give it a minute to populate. And then as you scroll down underneath educational opportunity, you can click the plus sign on the left-hand side and then click download. And that will give this information in a spreadsheet. If there are other years that you would like to see, looking to see if it'll come up, you simply scroll to the top and click the year that you would like to see for that data. So, thinking it's here maybe. Oh, it's on a different screen. Sorry, you guys, I've got several screens today. And so that screen is way over here. Let me bring it on here, over here. So you can see that it will download the data into a spreadsheet that you can filter. If you see asterisks there, that's letting you know that the data set size was too small. 10 students and under is represented by an asterisk, and that's to protect the privacy of students. So that's why you see some of these asterisks here. Are there any questions about that? All right. If not, then we will move on to talking about our priority recommendation clarifications. So let me see if I can bring that up. Can you see my screen with the State Advisory Council presentation?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let me put that into the slideshow view. Questions?
Kath, yes. Can you hear me? This is Bryn Martin.
Yes.
And I'm sorry if I missed you saying this, but in the filtering process, can I put like counties with over this amount, this percentage of gifted students, or the ones who have, X amount in this particular gifted ed capacity or category?
There are ways in Excel, Bryn, to look for different types of things. You would have to use a function for that and create a statement to look for that. And you can...
Okay, just using the general spreadsheet functions. There's nothing in the report itself that already allows you to do that. Okay.
No, that's correct. You'd have to, filter for that using a function. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions? That was a good one.
Kathy, we're currently looking at presenter mode. I don't know if you want to switch your screens.
Okay. Let me see. Not exactly sure how to do that.
Yep, that was it.
All right. Good deal. Okay. So last time when we met, we looked at our priorities again, and we made some recommendations to the Kentucky Department of Education about how to implement those recommendations. So let's look at our priorities once again. These priorities were set last year by the council. And so the first priority is around equity for identification and for services. They wanted to recommend that the Kentucky Department of Education support districts in identification and practices and services that were equitable for all students, especially those twice exceptional English learners, students associated with racial and ethnic groups, all socioeconomic students and students with special considerations to remove barriers for equal opportunity and access. Then the second priority was about accommodations for gifted and talented identification and testing. And so this statement centers around recommending that the Kentucky Department of Education communicate and provide guidance and resources to school districts and families that assessment accommodations must be provided to students who have an individual education program or a 504 plan. Then the third priority was around social emotional supports for gifted and talented students. And so in this recommendation, the council recommends that the KDE contact districts to highlight the importance of social emotional learning needs of our gifted students and gather resources that various role groups such as school psychologists, counselors, teachers, and parents can use to address the needs of these students. So we looked at these priorities and then made recommendations about how to implement these to the KDE. So these are our committee members, and I believe some of them, some of you were not included inadvertently, not on purpose. And so I believe that we added Lindsay Burton to priority number 1. Is that correct, Lindsay?
No, I think I ended up in 2.
All right, number 2, right. All right. And was there anyone else? I think we also moved Kim Nettleton. We moved Kim Nettleton. Did we move you over to social emotional support, Kim? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there any member's name that you do not see represented here on the division of work of the committees?
Oh, I raised my digital hand, but priority 2, the 4th dot should read Kirk Haynes, Haynes.
Thank you so much, Kirk. I appreciate that. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Dr. Anderson, should I be added to any of these groups?
Okay, and I'm sorry, I can't see people on my screen. Can you help me with that? Who is that?
This is Jessica. This is Jessica Hastings. Should I be added to any of these groups?
Well, I thank you for asking about that, Ms. Haynes. We wanted to let you decide which group you would like to be added to. Which group would you like to be added to?
Wow. I guess priority 1 would be of interest.
Okay. All right. Equity and Identification Services. All right. I've got that written down. So I'll add you to that breakout room here in just a minute. Okay. Any others? All
This
right.
is Kimberly Code. At the last meeting in the agenda, it has my name under social emotional support, and this one, it has it under priority 2. I can go in either one. I don't care.
Okay. Do you have a preference?
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Then we'll keep you here in priority number 2, if that's all right with you.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So before we get started with our committee work today, let me see if I can minimize this and show you. Let me just go in this order then. So as we look, I'm going to bring up the recommendations for the different priorities. And as we do that, I would like for you to be thinking about in your committee work today, does the recommendation align with the priority? Is the recommendation supported by data? And are there any other recommendations needed for this priority? So let me bring these up. See if I can escape out of this here. Okay. So our recommendations for our priorities, how to implement the recommendations, were placed into a Google form. And these are the different ways that the council thought that the priority might be implemented. And so each priority is on a separate page in the Google form. So priority number 1 starts on the first page, And so Committee 1 made these recommendations here. The recommendation is in the left of the table, and the rationale or supporting data is in the right. And so they made several different ways that they thought this might be implemented by the Kentucky Department of Education. And then we move on down to statement number 2. And they did the same thing. They made one recommendation, and they have their rationale and supporting data. And then the third page was about social emotional supports for GT students. And so that recommendation is on the left-hand side, and then the supporting data is on the right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break into our breakout rooms here in a minute. And what I would like for you to do is to edit each other's work. And so what we'll do is we'll have committee number 2 will review priority statement number 1. We'll look at committee number 1's work. And then committee 3 will look at priority number 2, committee number 2's work. And then committee number 1 will look at committee number 3's work, so that we're kind of looking at each other's work and thinking about the statements. Is it clear? Does it align to the priority? And is there data and rationale to support, this recommendation or this implementation of the recommendation? If you haven't worked in a Google form before, it's not very hard. It's pretty simple. What you'll do is, like, if you're doing a recommendation over here and you look at the recommendation and you think, well, there might be something that might be added or might be worded differently to make it clearer, you simply put the cursor by the word or the wherever you feel like that needs to go, and then you just click on the comment icon here at the top right hand of the page. And then that opens up a little box there, and then you just click plus, and then you can add your comment here. So I could type a comment, and then it will save it, I believe. Let me just see. So test, and then you just click comment, and it puts my comment there. So once we do that, then we will come back, and each group will edit. They'll have time to edit your work, look at the recommendations from the other committees, and then we'll do some sharing out after we've done some editing. So are there any questions about any of the directions or expectations for today's committee work?
Yes, could you repeat which committee is doing which priority? Because I thought I heard the same one mentioned twice. So
yes, okay. So committee 2 will look at committee 1's work. Right. Then committee 3 will look at committee 2's work, and then committee 3 will look at committee's 1's work. So it's just kind of shifting over.
Gotcha.
Yes, and I may have made a mistake, Brent. Thanks for making sure I clarified that.
And Kathy, we did mention that we wanted each group to choose a facilitator to help lead the discussion. And then if you need a note taker, and then the facilitator or someone you nominate may be the one reporting out as well.
Right. Okay. So yes, you probably just want one person to maybe make the comments for the group as you review, and then that person can either share out, or you can have another person who will share out. And I believe that we have assigned about, let's see, what time is it now? 9:30. So we are going to have about, I believe, 45 minutes for this work. Is that right? Yes, about 45 minutes for this work. And I've tried to put everyone ahead of time into breakout rooms. So are there any more questions? No? All right, we'll see no more questions then. Then I will open the rooms for you to go into, and then I will come into the rooms here in a little bit just to make sure everybody's doing okay, doesn't need anything. So thank you again for your expertise on this work, and I will open the rooms. Okay. So next on our agenda, everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up. All right. Next on our agenda, we're going to do our share out or our subcommittee reports of what edits that you or suggestions, comments that you are going to make based on the recommendations, the priority that you looked at. So we'll just start with, let me share my screen here if I can. And I may not be able to see you guys, so I apologize for that up front. Let me see.
Kathy, I can look for raised hands for you.
That would be good. Thanks, Joe. Okay. Can everybody see the Google form?
Yep.
All right. So we had recommendations about how to implement priority statement number 1. Let me scroll up here for that. And so this priority statement deals with equitable practices for identification and services. And so I believe, let's see, committee number 2 was going to edit committee number 1's work, correct? So who is the facilitator or reporter for this group? So we're looking at equity, which was priority statement number 1, and committee number 2 was going to edit committee number 1's work, correct?
And Kathy, if you scroll down just a bit, I noticed there were some comments that were added on there. I don't know if that might help. Byron added some comments.
Yeah, but that was 4 or 2.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
for a
okay.
different. So
Sorry about that, Byron.
No
that's
worries.
okay. So
so anybody else from that group who would like to speak about your work?
I missed the first part of the discussion, but Lindsay was our recorder. So maybe not appropriate at a statewide level, but a suggestion certainly to be passed on in training is that equitable access might need to include exposing low socioeconomic or multi-language learners or students who are in predominantly academically low performing schools to really level out the opportunity for their identification is to expose them to the types of questions that they may have in their assessments and expose them to standardized testing environment and give them opportunities to meet, socialize a little bit, connect with, peers who may think at a similar level. And my example was from the school that I currently work in. I asked the guidance. The school district gave the Nagalari, and I asked for a lower threshold. When we looked at MAP test scores for identification and nominations. And then I spent a couple of weeks building a relationship with those students, having them stay after school. We did practice. I found some practice tests, things that students elsewhere might consider as the norm in low performing schools, or had several multi-language learners that we had identified. So it was just a suggestion to help continue the idea of what equity looks like.
okay. So did you? I don't see that added as like a comment or anywhere there. Kirk, are you able to maybe add that as a comment
It
to
is
the
a
Google?
You, did you, when you pulled up this document, did you click the refresh?
I did. I'll
Okay.
try refresh again though.
The comments were typed by Lindsay. One of them says 9:49 a.m. One is at 9:59 a.m.
Not seeing that for some reason. Okay. All right. But I've written that down, and then Lindsay, were you able to capture that as well in the notes?
She said she added the comments. She's trying to share, but her mic is not working.
Okay. All right. All right. Were there any other comments about the recommendations or rationale for priority number 1?
I think I'm trying to raise my hand. But I think I did it correctly. Hello, this is Dr. Bradford. The only thing until we can see Miss Lindsay's comments was we were talking about where it says KDE will provide a diagnostic process for that recommendation. We were a little bit unclear as to what the diagnostic process would be. So we were asking for maybe some clarity on what that process would look like.
Thank you for that. So what would the diagnostic process look like? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. So would anybody from committee number 1 like to talk a little bit more about what that diagnostic process might look like for recommendation number 2?
This is Pauline in committee number 1. I am actually not sure of any particular diagnostic process to provide. Dr. Roberts, do you have any insight on that?
Oh, maybe not. I think that's something that we would need in order to make our recommendations. We need to consider it very carefully.
Okay. All right.
And we
That's
could do
something
that.
That's just something to be thinking about. Okay. All right. Any other comments or clarifications needed from committee number 2 to committee number 1?
Kathy, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was on that priority committee number 1. I can't remember exactly what, I think that was someone else's idea, but I think maybe in the surveys that go out, that maybe if there's something included, you know, when you're doing the school improvement plan or the district improvement plan, as part of that, part of your data that you gather, there's surveys that go out to different stakeholders, and that's not exactly diagnostic, but that could be a part of, to make sure that gifted data is collected. That may be what that was referring to. And is gifted a part of, in the survey, is gifted a part of the MTSS plan in that particular school or district.
Okay. And when we meet again, then y'all will be able to edit and think about the comments that are in the form. So thank you for that, Jean. Appreciate that. All right, let's move on then to priority number 2, and then the recommendations for priority number 2. So clarity about accommodations for GT identification and testing. So committee number 3 was looking at committee number 2's work here, and who's going to be the reporter or speaker for this group?
Since I added in the comments, be glad to be glad to do so. And anyone else is invited to jump in by all means. We mainly just clarifying questions more than anything as per, and I'm not sure if we're on the same document. I don't know. Mine showed up there, so you can see them. But anyhow, just to review quickly in terms of the identification of twice exceptional students. In the order, I would just say the one at the bottom is the clarification of GT handbook under section 3. Just need some clarification on that as to where that can be found. And then we had conversation around and appreciate providing the numbers from the Kentucky report card that 2.9% of students identified as twice exceptional. But I'm just curious if there's any ability to compare that nationally. And I sort of added this into the conversation of saying I don't have a point of comparison whether 3,000 out of approximately 87,000 identified GT students, nationally, is that low in comparison to other states? It's just hard to have a necessary frame of reference, I guess. So again, just a thought out there of, how is Kentucky comparing nationally in terms of the percentage or number of identified students that are twice exceptional? Then in terms of accommodation, we initiated the conversation with, wouldn't this be the expectation, or is this to just provide a reminder, a point of emphasis? I mean, I'm, not naive enough to know that there are disparities that occur, but certainly, if a student has a documented IEP, then there is a binding legal expectation to follow the IEP. But I understand this gets conflated or confused at times when applying it to gifted testing scenarios. So just again, a point of emphasis, perhaps. We also talked about would this need to include EL students, because again, not in any way wanting to conflate EL and special education. That is a separate issue and a problematic issue as well. But EL students as well tend to get under-identified, if you will. So just wondered if there is an EL component that needs to be considered there. And then again, just noting, is there a basis for concern that twice exceptional students are not receiving accommodations? And again, this is just more for a grounding point, in terms of how do we, and this is a sort of a difficult thing to know unless there are formal complaints filed about children not receiving their accommodations. So just a point of thought in terms of knowing the concerns and/or being able to track concerns about students not receiving said accommodations. And anyone else is certainly welcome to chime in. I know Bren was also looking at some resources, articles regarding twice exceptional also. I think she mentioned it out. Bren, if you want to chime in on that, certainly feel free.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, Bren.
Oh, okay, good. Because it's doing something on my end where it said it's like it's doing something. So I don't know if you could hear me, but I heard you all fine. Okay. Well, I just wanted to add that we can mention, because they had raised good points about when they stated that it was often overlooked for receiving GT services. And some of the members raised the points. I know Kim and some of the others were commenting on exactly what was that process looking like. So did that include them is it because they are the giftedness is being masked by the disabilities, or is it that some disabilities are being masked by the giftedness, or is it because of the cost or this lack of staffing? And so then that got us looking into what's going on with the overlooking component of it and how is that meshing out. And we would like to see more stats on exactly how they looked at the complaints that have come forth, have there been lawsuits, and just what's being done with those. And so we started looking up this dispute process. And there's an update coming from KDE that they're working on now, that they had just printed something in October stating they're working on it. So we want to put there to watch and share the update of the dispute process. And we know that the hearings sometimes include information such as the identification, the evaluation, the education placement and services, as well as the provisions for FAPE. And then there are some complaints that they want to make sure you don't use this process to include, if it involves certain abuse or civil rights violations. So there are certain other process for that. So we just want to make sure that the families and the schools are being up to date on what that process is and is kept in front of people to, especially to try to be preventive. Of course, if we can take care of things before it turns into a dispute, that would be awesome. So we want to make sure that's kept in front of people. And then we're adding a couple of resources that we found along that journey. And there's a 2E dilemma document, Twice Exceptional Dilemma is the actual name of it, by NEA. So that would, I'm sure that would give some good data as we're looking for supporting information. And then the National Association for Gifted Children, NAGC, has something called state by state report. So as one of the gentlemen raised one of the questions earlier, that might have some information from a state perspective, looking at other states anyway, to compare and see how we rate with that. But also on that, I want to make a note that NAGC is having its convention November 17th through the 20th, right around the corner in Indianapolis.
Thank you, Bran. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's turn our attention then, if there aren't any other comments, then to number 3. So this is the third priority down here about social emotional supports for GT students. And we had committee number 1 looking at committee number 3's recommendations for priority statement number 3. So
Okay,
who is the speaker for this group?
Pauline.
Okay, go ahead, Pauline.
Let's see, Kathy, would you mind refreshing that worksheet? I added some comments to it, just a couple. Maybe scroll down, yes. Oh, maybe not. Okay, well, I could just speak about it and ensure and just make sure that those comments are added.
Okay.
So for the first recommendation, our group agreed with that first recommendation, that students should be included as a subgroup identifier for disaggregation and identification in all areas. And then for the second one, we had a discussion mainly for the second and third recommendation. And we discussed changing the term, instead of professional development, perhaps it could be professional learning, to ensure that it is understood that a teacher or a counselor doesn't necessarily need to have an entire session on professional development to gain understanding. Perhaps it may just be through the viewing of a video clip or an article, a professional peer-reviewed article, for example. And then for the third item, I want to make sure here. Oh, okay, sorry. And so on the second recommendation, the rationale and the rationale box, we were wanting more clarification. And I'm not sure if any of my teammates would like to speak on it, but I think we're also looking for more specific rationale or information. Yeah, I think that's
all. And so what
I,
rationale was that?
The professional development is on the district gifted plans, but is not implemented systematically. So,
okay.
You know, is there data that supports that, or is it simply anecdotal? I think is what we're trying to understand. And then same with lesson plans. The second point there, lesson plans may be one way to check implementation during an audit. So again, there's no fact that there is or isn't the professional development. We're just wanting to see more specifics, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the third recommendation, KDE will require that social emotional needs of gifted students should be part of the preparation program for pre-service teachers, counselors, etc. We agreed with that. And Dr. Roberts, in her wisdom, was talking about how pre-service teachers, from her experience and working with pre-service teachers, that in fact they don't have that type of support or that type of training, but that could be solidified by providing or asking newly graduated teachers to complete a survey with regard to preparation.
Okay.
And also, I mentioned this in our conversation for the third priority, or not priority, but the third recommendation. Also, Dr. Roberts said that part of the requirement, KDE will require that social and emotional needs of gifted students should be part of the preparation program. That's the rationale is that it is part of the teacher standards already. So that's an easy reference there.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Are there any other comments about the recommendations for the priorities? All right. Well, good work. So I will follow up with those of you who had notes for our Google Sheet just to make sure that all of these have been captured. And so if you get an email from myself or Joe, that's what I will make sure that we follow up to make sure we've captured everybody's comments or thoughts about the recommendations. Okay. So now we'll be moving on to meeting dates. So let me bring that up really quick here. So these are our meeting dates that are coming up. Our next one will be Wednesday, February the 1st. This will be a hybrid meeting. And then our meeting after that was to be Wednesday, April the 19th, 2023. This was to be in person. And so I was wondering if we could perhaps change this date. I've got a business that I need to do during the week of the 19th, and was wondering if we could maybe move that up to Thursday, April the 13th. But we would need to vote on that. And so just wanted to get your thoughts on that, about changing that to Thursday, April the 13th. Does anybody have any conflicts with that date or any thoughts about changing the April 19th date to the 13th?
I'm checking right now.
It seems fine.
Okay. I was hoping it would be far enough out that maybe y'all didn't have any plans on that date. So, Joe, I believe we have to have a motion. Is that correct to change that date?
Yeah, and what you can do is just have all the dates proposed and then do a vote on all of those.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. And then go ahead.
Kathy, let me
Yes.
add that February the 1st is the proclamation day at the Capitol in Frankfurt for Gifted
Okay.
Ed month.
So are you saying that we may need to move that date as well rather than the 1st? Have it as the 2nd, or what is your thought on that, Dr. Roberts?
I suppose as long as it was over by 11, that would be okay, but I'd hope quite a few of us would want to be in the Capitol Rotunda for the proclamation signing.
Okay. Well, perhaps we could go ahead.
Dr. Roberts would know better the timing of the event from year to year, but make the event part of our agenda.
And it is at noon.
My daughter will be part of that proclamation ceremony. So I thought it was planned that we were, meeting at the same time. I thought that was kind of neat, that we would be meeting on the same day. So if that makes any difference.
Well, the catch is we're meeting remotely, unless I missed something.
I believe that's hybrid, Dr. Roberts. I think we're meeting in person as well as through Microsoft Teams or, virtually. We had planned to do both that day.
So then make sure that we're through by 11.
Okay.
Or could we just say that that one's in person and the April one is virtual?
That sounds good.
I would like to make it so that in person brings in people. So
yes, and Kathy, that allows them to attend the proclamation, which that's very cool.
Right. Okay.
I like the idea of the proclamation being a part of the agenda for the meeting.
Okay.
Really is a great idea.
How long does it take to get from the education building to the Capitol? Or could we just meet in the Capitol and reserve one of those rooms? Or
that would
how difficult
be
is
something
that?
I would have to check on, do some research on and get back to you on.
That would probably be awesome if we could just be in that one spot. And for some of us who might come up overnight, maybe we could just have a little work session for those who might want to get together, maybe make some posters and have that for the proclamation.
Just throwing out an idea. So we have all the K groups. The Kentucky Education Association's headquarters building is just right down the hill. We could contact them. They have a large, very large meeting room. And
that sounds good.
And then perhaps KEA would encourage, a representative sample of members to also participate.
Right.
But it's 401 Capitol Avenue. So if it's a relatively nice day, it's just a 2-block walk.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, good exercise.
I believe, this is Pauline. I believe when we were trying to set the agenda and the meeting times and dates, we did talk about how February 1st is a precarious time in our weather. And I think that is why we went hybrid. But I mean, I love the idea of being in person. It's just, I think it was an opportunity for us to connect regardless of the weather situation.
All right. What time is the proclamation? Is it at noon?
It is at noon.
Just want to make sure I've got that down. Okay. All right.
Early.
Okay.
I'll just
so let's go ahead.
Expand on the idea. If we're there in person and we're attending the proclamation, then maybe an item on the agenda, a 15 or 20-minute presentation on what advocacy with state legislators looks like and how to do that, and maybe have a guest speaker, or I absolutely know we have a member on our Teams meeting right now who is a huge advocate. But it might do as well for those of us who have fewer experiences, or we have hesitations about, making a phone call to the legislative line, or writing a postcard or something like that.
Okay. Are there any other comments about the February 1st meeting?
That would be good. And really, that would be if we did, well, would it be too much to make like a 2-day thing about it? And then that day before, have the advocacy portion where we can work on our letters and presentations, because that day of advocacy, we will go and meet with legislators and that. And so for those who would feel more comfortable with a bit of a script, and we could have some information prepared. So we'll have some handouts for our members to take to the legislators. We could put together some folders, have some things, some talking points put together for them. I'd be happy to help with that. I've done a lot of that.
And if we have
There's a little catch to this. I think the session has not officially started on the 1st.
Oh, right. No, I meant, oh. What do you mean? Oh, you mean so there won't be any legislators there to meet that day?
That is, yes, they won't be in session yet.
Okay, what is
now,
the
they
actual
may
date
be there, but it's not because they have a meeting at 2:00.
Okay. Do we know what the actual date they'll be in session? Can we confirm that? But still, we could do something, work on letters to the editor. We could maybe do that. Go ahead and get our postcards ready and emails and get that ready to mail and have, so as soon as they get in the session, they'll get ours first.
So Bryn, let me just step in here just for a second. So I just need to remind the group that we are a group that is part of the Kentucky Department of Education. And so we are a group that makes, recommendations about services, for gifted students. If it's something that you want to do on your own to advocate, but that's not necessarily the purpose of our group. So, all right. So back to looking at the dates. I've got, as I said before, Thursday, April the 13th. We've talked about that one. And we're thinking about making that one virtual if we make the February 1st one in person. And then I have some other dates, Wednesday, the July 2nd, Wednesday, September the 20th, and then Wednesday, November the 29th. So take a quick look at that, see if you've got any comments or thoughts about those.
Could you repeat those 3 dates, please?
Yes, please.
Yes. Can you not see them on the screen? Do you not
Yeah.
see them on the screen?
Yeah, I see
So
that
it's
now.
Wednesday, July the 12th, Wednesday, September the 20th, and Wednesday, November the 29th.
What's the April date?
April the 13th.
So you gonna leave that in person? I thought we just said change that to virtual since we're doing.
I can change that to make it.
Okay,
How's that?
sounds good.
Then this one up here, we're thinking about in person.
However, Kathy, some people put in the chat that they kind of still wanted to keep that hybrid the February 1st because of the weather. We could possibly do a 9 to 11, keep it hybrid, but then on site for the proclamation at noon.
Okay, I'm writing that down. 9 to 11, hybrid.
And then noon proclamation, that gives people an opportunity who would like to be on site to attend that.
Okay.
Dr. Roberts, is that kind of what you were thinking?
I think that would be fine.
Okay.
And that way, if the weather is challenging, at least we have the hybrid option, and then those who may be close might be able to make it. Those who are farther probably would choose not to travel.
Okay. All right. Good deal. So do we need a motion then, I believe, to accept these changes and also these new dates for the upcoming dates?
Make a motion.
That's Kim Nettleton. Is that right? So what is
Yes.
your motion, Kim, that you make a motion to?
Make a motion, just a motion. I make a motion that we accept these dates that you've presented.
Okay.
Pauline Covington seconds that.
All right. Pauline is seconding. Good deal. All right. Okay. All right. So then we need to have a vote, correct? So Dr. Roberts, I could believe that you can just do aye and nay if you want.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And those opposed to the motion say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
All right. Good deal.
Okay.
So,
Dr. Roberts.
yes.
Is there room for some of us to be able to share at the proclamation and maybe have a few words at the podium? I know everybody wants to hear you, but if there's room for me to have a few words, I would love to. And I'm sure a few others that might want to, that people would enjoy hearing from.
Actually, I'm not the one who plans that. It's a pretty long program, so I don't know the answer to that, Bran, but I'll pass your word along.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Appreciate that. So next on our agenda is Kim Nettleton. She's going to be giving us a CAGE update, and I'm going to get off here so that you can share.
Okay, sorry.
Sharing my screen.
Oh,
Do
that's
you need
okay.
to share your screen or anything, Kim?
I don't.
Okay, thank you.
So Julia's already shared about the proclamation. That'll be on the 1st, but Gifted Education Month will be in February. CAGE usually supports that in a really big way as much as possible and encourages gifted teachers and coordinators to have their students and their school districts participate as well. And CAGE will have their conference on the 27th and 28th in Lexington this year in February. And I'm trying to think. One day, the first day, the 27th, is more of an administrator day, and but the conference is going on both days. So there are special administration sessions on the 27th. And really, I can't think. I don't know what else there is to share at this point. I brought up last time the concerns they had on how can CAGE help support visual and performing arts and the advisory council, and that's the only question that's still out there. Okay,
Thank you,
so
Kim.
sorry it's
Appreciate
short,
that.
but that's all I have.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, then next we have closing remarks by Dr. Roberts.
Thank you so much. I'll follow up with what Kim added. Registration is currently open for the CAGE conference. And yesterday, I think that happened yesterday, and 2 people registered, and I hope many of you will follow up. We have a great set of speakers coming in for that. I want to say 2 or 3 things kind of in light of the conversations today. Remember, the primary talent pool is to give opportunities to children from lower income families, perhaps twice exceptional English language learners, those who need that extra opportunity to learn at complex levels, to do higher level thinking. And I'm afraid in many places, primary talent pool is in name only. And if that's the case, those things aren't happening. So I would suggest that if you're in a school district, you look at what is the primary talent pool, what's going on, are more people providing services to those children than just the gifted resource teacher, because that's really important for these children to have the opportunity to develop at high levels. I also want to remind you that the GSSP is an IEP. Exceptional children in Kentucky are a category of gifted children, constitute a category of exceptional children, and the law says that all exceptional children will have an individual education plan. And the decision a long time ago was made to call it a gifted student services plan because the ratio of gifted resource teachers might be 1 to 200, 300, 400 students, where other exceptional children, the ratio might be 1 to 15 or someplace in that category. I want to say that there was recently a presentation by Susan Weston Perkins on the recent data, both of the national report card and the state data. And it shows a downturn starting in 2017, which certainly comes ahead of the pandemic. So looking at the low percentage of children who are achieving at proficient and distinguished levels is pretty alarming. So check that out in your district and see what's going on. A happier announcement is that through the Center for Gifted Studies at Western Kentucky University, we have launched a talent search, certainly to take the place of what Duke Tip did in Kentucky for almost 40 years. And very recently, we have permission from ACT for 7th and 8th graders to take the ACT. There had been a couple of years that children under the age of 13 were not allowed to do that. And through our talent search, that's opened back up, and we hope you'll help share that information. I heard the State of the States report mentioned a new one is coming out. I'm not positive, but I think it might be released in Indianapolis yet this week. So that would give us some data to compare, I think, on twice exceptional children in other states, and that would be a good thing. I've actually talked with Ann Wren recently, and I know that she's involved with the new State of the States, and she sent me a little bit of information that would be on that. And I think all of you know the headquarters for the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children is at WKU. And this summer, we will host a a world conference, and this one will be done virtually in various time zones like we did it 2 years ago. So that would be something that you certainly would have the opportunity to submit a proposal for, and that you would have the opportunity also to participate with those from around the world. And I think those are the things that I thought were perhaps ones that would be useful to all of you as we're moving forward. It's so important for us to know what's going on in Kentucky, but also to know about what's going on for gifted children in the United States. And I think it's kind of nice to have a world perspective on that as well.
Thank
So
you, Dr. Roberts.
I'd be glad to answer questions if anyone has one relating to what's going on.
Dr. Roberts, it looks like Jessica Hastings has her hand raised.
And what would you like to ask, Jessica?
Hi, Dr. Roberts. Thank you. I was just going to ask, is there a mandate for a percentage of students who are supposed to be in the primary talent pool, or if that's just district by district?
I think there's a recommendation. I wouldn't call it a mandate, but the recommendation is that approximately a quarter of the students in K1, 2, 3 would participate in the talent pool, receiving multiple services to ensure that they have opportunities to develop at the highest level, especially looking at the fact that many of the young people selected, and they're selected rather than identified for the primary talent pool, that many of them are those who started school without the advantages of other students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Any other questions? All right, hearing no other questions then, Joe, I'll let you close us up by talking about the exit slip.
I'm sorry, real quick, can I, this is Brian, could I ask one question? It took me, my screen went away for the mic. I just wanted to
you have a
ask,
question?
is there a benefit to changing the pool to where it just includes K and 1, 2, and put the third graders in the regular gifted program, or the research is already showing that that is not good? What is your thought?
I don't think that's something that research is supporting one way or the other. I don't think that's how that decision was made. That decision was made because in 1990, the primary program was part of what was in the new way that schools would be implemented. And if the primary program had gone into full implementation, all children would have been achieving at whatever level they were ready to on an ongoing basis. I think that your question relates to the regulation, not to research that is necessarily one way or the other.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts, for answering that question. All right. Any other questions? Okay, if not, Joe, would you talk to us a little bit about the exit slip, please?
Yeah, yes, I've placed the link to the exit slip in the chat, and I will send a follow-up email to everyone as well. Again, we encourage you to provide feedback to us about the quality of the meeting, and then any other areas that you would like to address, be that support, guidance, resources. Kathy and I like to look at that to help prepare for the next meeting. So really appreciate everyone being here today, and thank you so much for your feedback. And turn it back over to you, Kathy.
Thanks, Joe. So I'm going to give you a few minutes of your time back today. And Dr. Roberts, if you would, please close us with the meeting. Ask for a motion and a second.
Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved. This is Jessica.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. We certainly stand adjourned.